Long before anyone knew anything about vision statements or logos or church branding, Antioch Church was standing here on this hill doing what God had called her to do, making and mobilizing fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. For nearly 140 years, generation after generation of servants and soldiers of the kingdom of God have gathered in this place to learn of the love of God, to be equipped to share that love, and then to be sent back into the community to share that love with others. Two characteristics have marked each succeeding generation of the Antioch family: consistency and commitment. Though storms have come, both for the church and the world around her, each generation has remained faithful to the task of making and mobilizing fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. It has not always been easy. There have been external factors such as war, depression, racial and moral upheaval, and changing times, as well as internal difficulties, times when the church seemed to briefly lose their focus on God's purpose. From time to time, these threatened the future viability of Antioch. Through it all, for now 140 years, faithful servants have continued to gather here to worship and learn and leave from here to go and serve. Through it all, the generations of Antioch have been consistent. Not only were they consistent, but they showed a remarkable amount of commitment and creativity. At times, that commitment was necessary just to keep the doors open, through times when there was no money to pay a pastor or keep the lights on, coupled with incredible need in the community. At other times, that commitment was on display when the people had to set aside their preferences about church in order to meet the changing needs of the community around them. At each crossroads, that generation stepped up to the plate and with resolve did whatever was necessary to continue to reach people. Some of the things they did seem so normal now, but think of the commitment and innovation necessary for them to pursue these opportunities.
The tithing house was a big thing for Pastor Roy Bergner, and he really believed in tithing to the extent that we built a building and people brought their vegetables. I remember mostly potatoes, and the women of the church canned fruit and beans, went down to Bernard School and canned these cans of things, and they put them on a train and sent them to an orphanage.
I guess it was back either in the late 50s or early 60s that was just a big group of young married couples, and we had what we called a training union class. And we always, most of the time, kept some kind of a mission project going that we could work with, and did a lot of good things. So at this Christmas, we decided to take that family as a project, or this class did. And so when it came time to go to deliver them on the particular date that right before Christmas, we had, I guess you'd just call it a regular blizzard. And this road out here was just a little gravel road. It hadn't been paved yet. And it had a ditch on each side. And this particular evening that we decided our delivery was going to be for Christmas, the road was so bad there was only two little tracks right through the middle. That day, we packed all of the gifts in one car. The rest of us was going to walk.
Seemed like we had more fun, walking, and then everybody was together. Everybody couldn't get in one car, and so we just had a lot of fun doing that.
Times were hard, but through it all, Antioch stood tall and proud on this hill, ministering, worshiping, and making and mobilizing disciples. The 1980s brought new challenges as a long-tenured pastor led the church to new levels of growth and excitement. As Pastor Ken Kiker led the church to a new commitment to Sunday school and outreach, it quickly became apparent that our existing building was not adequate for the work God had called us to. Again, Antioch heard the call, and with great commitment and consistency, another generation stepped up to the task.
I'm Bobby Harrell, and this is my wife Alice. My first memory working on the church, I was working with Louise's daddy, Ernest Clark. We went in there, Mr. Clark and myself, and we knocked out walls, concrete walls, some of them as thick as 15 inches or so. The next project, I guess, was the the fellowship hall and the classrooms on the upper floor, you know. And of course, I was working on that actually, you know, doing part of the labor as much as I could. But we had a lot of the church men come in and help on that. And then we started talking about, later was this section. And Ken Kiker was pastor then. It was real rough to think about building on. So we talked about that and come up with this plan, sort of stepping it with the hillside, you know. And got this worked out then and got the plans drawn up for it and approved by the church and all. The people were giving money, and people coming that was trying to help us with this, getting the money raised. He said there'll be someone that'll give $40,000. I thought, wow, there won't be anybody give that much. And you know, he talked on down the scale, but he said, Tom, it's all put together. He said, you can raise the money.
It's amazing what the Lord can do. You know, we may try to do something, but the Lord just brings the people together. And Antioch has always been known as a loving, giving church.
This new building and new tools led to an era of new growth and outreach, which led to the need for additional staff and ministries. Through several pastors, the faithful generations of the Antioch family always rose to the occasion.
I started in the youth group in the late 80s, early 90s. It was always a large group, and it was my family. We were at church more than we were at home. It seemed like we had something going on every Saturday, every Sunday, every Wednesday night. You came to hang out and to fellowship and also learn about God. It seemed like the whole church wrapped their arms around the youth group. Youth banquets and that type of things that would happen. You know, you wouldn't have 20 people show up. I mean, you'd have 200 show up. We'd serve 200 dinners and put on a show. So, you know, it seemed like the whole church just loved on the youth, and it was a wonderful experience at that point.
Well, I can remember when Boone and Elaine came and proposed an alternative to Halloween. I thought it'd never fly. You know, everybody likes Halloween. And of course, after we had our first one, and we had, 4,000 people to come, had like 300 professions of faith, I said, we hit a home run. The community really got involved, and it just continued on from that point on. It just grew, and I think the community was really affected by it. We came together. We had a lot of friendships formed. Got to know some people we went to church with, but we didn't know them.
It was a lot of work. We did it for like 3 weekends, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, long nights, practice. And I was excited to be able to do a little part in it and bring us all closer together. And the main point that I thought was so exciting was everybody to hear how many souls were saved by what we did. And that was exciting to see the little children and adults, everybody. And it was from young to old in the church. Everybody was participating.
Yeah.
When I came to Antioch as a youth, I had gotten saved in Judgment House, and I knew nobody, so I was really nervous, and my aunt encouraged me that everything would be fine. Everyone was very accepting, but I was still rough around the edges, so I'm sure there was a lot of contemplation from everyone in the youth group. But everyone was loving, which is why I came back. The first thing that I think of is just unconditional love. I've had so many people invest in my life, and like I said, I had a lot of scars. I had a lot of things I needed to work through. People looked past that and taught me some things and taught me about God's love and let me lean on them when I cried, was there for me when I needed things, told me things I didn't want to hear but I needed to hear. Pretty much just loving me unconditionally.
To be sure, there were ups and downs, but those were great years for the Antioch family. Years of growth, innovation, and ministry. Unfortunately, as we neared the end of the first decade of this new millennium, dark clouds began to gather. A long-tenured and well-loved pastor was moved by God to a new ministry role elsewhere. It seemed a perfect storm as the church struggled both for leadership and direction, falling to around 100 in attendance. Yet that faithful few continued to pray and work. The community seemed to have forgotten them, but they had not forgotten this community that God had placed on the hearts of their spiritual ancestors. By the spring of 2011, a fresh wind of God's favor began to blow on Antioch in response to those prayers. A new staff, a focused transition plan, and a season of repentance, revival, and renewal led to another generation of innovative ministry.
I'm Carl, this is my wife Kat. We have 3 children, Cynthia, Kaylee, and Martin. We've been out of church for several years. We heard from a friend that there was a church doing a school supplies giveaway.
Love Loud.
Yeah, we found out when we got here it was called Love Loud. Yeah, we came to church a couple of times and then we found out about the Awana program and we started letting the kids go to that, and the more they got involved with that, the more we wanted to come back to church so that we knew the people they were around with Awana. And it just kind of worked out. It just kind of fell together. It's brought us a lot closer to Christ. I mean, honestly.
I think our kids have been the greatest effect that we've gotten from the church. Is how we've done things with them has changed so much since we started coming here.
Hey, I'm Scott Longwell, and this is my wife Karen. And we have a daughter, Rachel Longwell, that comes to the church here. Well, Rachel started coming to the Awana program. She was invited by a friend of hers that didn't belong to the church, but they came, the daughter her age came to the Awana program, so she started coming to that.
Everyone seems so sincere, and everyone always prays for you. You know that you have someone to count on in bad times and good times. It's like a family.
My name is Marissa Posner. I came here to be at Antioch through Family Promise, which was actually the shelter my daughter and I were in. And honestly, this has been the best church ever. With Family Promise, you stay in several different churches. You switch a church each week. And when we came to Antioch, they were the most welcoming and most caring people ever. I was actually never a big church person. We went to church when I was little, and it's always been a bad experience. And you start coming here, and I've gotten to learn a lot about God and Jesus, and just knowing that He's there for us. And I've seen Him work in great ways just in my life as well. And I've learned to accept Him in my heart and everything, and decided it was time to make the public statement that I accepted Jesus into my heart and got baptized.
This season of renewed purpose and outreach brings this generation to our own crossroads. It is our opportunity to put Antioch in a position to continue reaching an ever-changing world with a never-changing gospel. The Father has put an urgency in the hearts of our leaders to prepare for the next wave of growth and ministry. He is calling us to see the coming opportunity and to position ourselves to leverage it for the advancement of His kingdom. We believe that God has called us to be an intergenerational church of 400 or 500 people in this community and in this building. In order to do that, we have much work to do. That is why we are launching a campaign called Antioch 2.0. This campaign will seek to do 3 things. It will seek to raise $400,000 toward a complete renovation of the current worship center into a modern and versatile facility that will allow us to present the gospel in both a comfortable and compelling environment. It will allow us to launch a training strategy to double the number of small group leaders by mid-2016, allowing us to go to 2 worship services and 2 small group hours. And finally, it will allow us to plant or revitalize a church in a similar community of the Tri-Cities by 2017. Antioch 2.0 is a God-sized task, perhaps the greatest task God will assign some of us in our lifetime. It is our response to God's call. As we together answer this call, we will take our place among the generations at Antioch that have done our part in perpetuating the gospel here and around the world. May those who come behind us find us faithful.